Here we go. And now a 60-second speech improvised entirely about being pro surge pricing. So the next 60 seconds, Alex Knight is going to defend surge pricing. Take it away, Alex.
The surge pricing, I'm guessing you're talking about Ubers, Lyfts, and that, happens when there's a popular event downtown. Maybe the Knicks are in town playing at Popejoy, and so the prices are up because of all the people going dressed up fancy, see the Knicks. The surge price is important because it's telling you are a sheep and you are going to popular things at popular times, and you needed to get your independence together, and you need to go after. You need to go to the neat things that the people aren't going to. You need to go to the other side of town where the small thing is happening, where the folk basket man from Tehuacan has come up from Mexico to teach a workshop. That's way less exciting than the Knicks at Popejoy, and in a way. And so the surge pricing, again, is just telling you're an asshole. It's telling you're doing asshole things with asshole people.
I think that's fine.
Yeah. I don't need a minute. All right, cool.
You made a great point.
Here we go. This is a 1-minute riff about where would be the best place to wake up, Sarah? Like,
oh, yeah. Hold on. You're gonna give me the whole prompt again because I got you off like crazy. Okay, sorry.
This is a 1-minute riff about the best place to wake up.
All right. The best place to wake up is where you remember going to bed the night before. I think that is a really important thing. If you wake up and you're like, wait, how did I get here? And then all of a sudden you're like in the movie Memento, that's not good. That's the worst place to wake up. The best place to wake up is where you laid your head the night before. You venture to say your own bed or someplace nice, but even if you're out of town, sometimes you can wake up in a hotel bed and it can be as comfy, if not more comforting than your bed at home. But as long as you knew that's where you went to bed. Like, I think even if you knew that you went to bed in a tub full of ice missing your kidney, that would still be better than surprisingly waking up in an ice cube bath with your kidney missing, because you made a choice at some point and you got yourself into that one, and maybe you needed the money or maybe somebody needed the kidney, but it still makes it better than not remembering that and just coming to in an ice cube bath.
Seconds.
Oh, great. Anyway, just remember wherever you can remember.
Imagine going to bed in an ice bath. You're like, fuck. I'll just a couple winks.
Yeah, it's just like,
I'll figure this out.
This will be better in the morning. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker, and that seems like the main cause of waking up somewhere where you don't remember, waking up on the fucking lawn or whatever. And so I don't have any recollection of waking up somewhere where I don't remember going to bed
the night before. That's good. Yeah, no, same.
And haven't had to wake up in a hospital or anything. I haven't had any of those.
That's the other thing too, is if you got a really bad head injury or if your drink was drugged or those kind of things too, that those things can lead to those. That all sounds absolutely terrible.
I've come to on the floor of a Walgreens after I was going to Africa, and they give you a lot of vaccinations, and they were like, we could just do 4 right now. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And they gave me 4 vaccinations, and my body was like, I don't like that. And it like shut down. And yeah, I came to a little bit. So maybe I did wake up on the floor of a Walgreens.
I think that sounds like a lovely place to take a nap.
I love Walgreens. Shall we?
Yeah, let's get started.
Welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the podcast that lives where improv and stand-up collide. And now, here's your hosts, Alex Knight and Sarah Kennedy.
Hey!
Hi,
it's the Goofball Coalition, the podcast where improv and stand-up wink at each other in a knowing way.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say, run a 3-legged race.
Oh, I like that one better. Yeah, I'm going to let you do these from now on.
I was going to say, you can do them every time, but I'm happy to watch them. But I can help you out if you need them, but no.
Yeah, you get the next one. So my name is Sarah Kennedy.
I'm Alex Knight.
And I'm a stand-up comedian.
And I'm an improviser.
And for too long have the two been not... We've always been friends, but the art forms have had a bitter rivalry, and we just,
Who's his oldest? I think mine might be oldest, according to my notes.
I think yours, that depends on which we could call the origins.
The campfire had both, probably.
Yeah. Today's episode is about the histories of these two types of performance, and you can find differing opinions about both all over the place. I would love actually for if you want to kick us off, tell us about the
Yeah.
origins of improv.
Yeah, we'll just do, here's the bullet points.
Yeah.
So I think the first documented whatever is 391 BC, somewhere, something, I don't know. Somewhere something said something happened around then. So that's pretty old. But then 16th, 17th, or 16th, 18th century Commedia dell'arte was like kind of the start. And that was like Italian like clowns. And they would have these stock clowns. If we want to get into it, like Seinfeld kind of breaks down, there's the 4 clowns are in there. You've got like the like leader clown that's smart, like the Jerry. You've got the bumbly one that's always down on their luck, which is like a George. And you've got like a wild one, which is like a Kramer or whatever. There might be a fourth, maybe Elaine's a fourth one. But like you had these stock characters. And they would then get into sometimes improvised things with those characters. But like the characters had their for sure ways they would react and respond to things. So it was like you had pieces and the pieces would improvise, but the whole thing wasn't improvised. And then not until 1890, Stanislavski, Russian director, is using improv in like acting training, but it's not quite performative. We still use that stuff today. Like even in improv stuff, we'll do repetition and things like that. So like it's growing a little bit. People are figuring it out. 1940s, 50s, 60s. Then we get Viola Spolin, and she's like the mother of it, basically modern improv. She's the one that created so many of the games we play, theater games and stuff that we played, like anyone played in elementary school and stuff. And then those things turn into like more advanced improv games. You've got like Keith Johnstone in England doing stuff as well. And then Viola Spolin's son creates like what did he do? Did he do Second City? No, I think so. I think Second City came from Paul Sales. If we're doing a podcast with history, I should be for sure on these.
Oh, it's okay.
It doesn't matter.
If you're into our podcast, you should be into looking
who we
up.
are.
Yep.
Yeah. So then Second City started, and then we've got UCB, and then we've got all this stuff. But it's not until really the 60s, 70s did it even become what it looks like now. It's young. It's so young. Yeah. It's not, but it's like the thing that we're doing now, version of it is like pretty young. So when we talk about famous people and people that have trailblazed it, there's not too many of them in a good way for both of our art forms. But yeah, so I think that's where we are. That's where we are now. And now it's Whose Line, and that's what we got.
Yeah.
And Nick Cannon's, what was his? Nick Cannon.
Wild and Out.
Wild and Out.
Yeah. You got that one.
Yeah.
Cool. Those are good.
Let's hear your bullet point.
What a fun question to ask me, Alex. So today we were like, oh, let's talk about the history of both of them. And I was like, because I know pretty far back. There's no real.
What's the first, Sarah? Well,
if you want to talk about the real first, we can go even further back than the one that I'm.
The one. I want to know about the one, but we'll get to the one.
So there was the 1600s also this idea of you could talk. It was like TED Talks. They had serious TED Talks. They've always had that. They had that like in ancient Greece,
like
and that
salons
kind of stuff.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
And then. Yeah, and then in the 1800s, there was this one guy who was a real wise cracker, and he did one of those serious TED Talky lectures, but he said nothing but nonsense the entire time, and it was the first recorded instance of a goofy goofball being on stage by himself. Yeah, and then Mark Twain saw it and then was inspired by it, and then created a whole tour of himself just going up and getting on stage and being like a funny lecture guy. But that's funny lecture guy is its own form of stand-up, but then the real kind of the
parody.
That's
it was like this thing exists. Let me like tweak it a little.
If we ever get Weird Al on here, I'm sure he would probably call back to that more for his history than my history, which is that really the traditional way that we understand comedy currently started in minstrel shows where they were touring around low-class audiences and making fun of Black people and wearing blackface, and just that's where it set up, and punchline as a form took place because they would have two people in the minstrel show one was a straight man, and that's that you get the terminology out of that from those. And then I watched this one documentary that said that they toured around everywhere with these minstrel shows. They even went and did one for the Queen of England, and she loved it. Which is, how does she even have it? Anyway, what was really cool, though, that's the one thing that's going to get taken out of this podcast. What was really cool about minstrel
the best part
it's
of it.
Terrible, it's awful. But there were two actually like Black performers who got in on the minstrel circuit. They became a duo together. And then they broke away from the minstrel circuit to do their own shows and to actually have commentary about the Black experience in America. And that also started its own stretch of what stand-up is as of today. Then, as old as those shows are, there have always been people who have been like, these are wrong and bad and should not be happening. And so the backlash to those kind of things were like vaudeville popped up in a space, and vaudeville was like weirdly super squeaky clean, which I didn't realize that at the time because it was supposed to be a response to all the cabaret shows that had come out of the Prohibition time.
Hmm.
And so they were running concurrently. But so then as things move on, you get the Marx Brothers and all them are from vaudeville into the movies. And then in the nightclub circuit, that's where you would get more of the body, like BAWDY kind of nightclub performer guys. And so that's how you end up with the Lenny Bruce. And then with the 60s and the folk music movement, coffee shops. Here's the thing about stand-up, as I'm realizing, is that whatever it is, if you'll just let somebody get up on stage with their ideas, they'll take advantage of it. So they'll do it on vaudeville. They'll do it in a movie. They'll do it in these coffee shops in between folk artists. And then that's really when you get like all the cool stuff that happened in New York, where you get like Bob Newhart and Joan Rivers and all those people. And then you get Carlin and you get... I'm blanking on so many people, but that's when it kind of really solidifies as an art form. And then HBO started, and that's when you get it like specials and this kind of like career path that's more than just being a dude on the road. And then you get
TV shows, right?
Yeah, crazy sitcoms, and then alt comedy with Patton Oswalt and alternative spaces like bookstores and concert halls where you could have comedy instead of in a club, which also I missed when that got started. And then now the internet, which is where everybody gets famous now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always like both of them have always been the same and around. It's just been people trying their best to get their ideas out there in whatever way to express themselves. And yeah, both of them seem very adaptable art forms that would squeeze into the smallest places and stuff. Yeah, like improv is used in film and stuff. Robin Williams, Will Ferrell, and like all these people. Yeah, like it's around. You don't necessarily see it or know when it is, but yeah, and same thing with the stand-up. Like all that stuff is, I don't know, it's all building on itself, and they've been around probably, yes. 391 BC was probably yours as well. They're probably both the exact same thing.
I would love to be there that day. Let's go back in time and just be like,
what
you
that
call
first
this
thing
improv?
was?
Yeah. Be pretty good. Is there anything like in your deep dives of this kind of stuff that you thought was interesting? I thought the Four Clowns thing was pretty interesting, but is there anything else that kind of stuck out to you as a cool factoid?
Just again, that it's weird to me that it wasn't picked up sooner, that it wasn't being like performed. Like I don't see an end to it. I don't see people stopping doing it, why they would stop doing it. So I don't know if that makes sense. Like why it took so long for it to be created in like a uniform way. Short, long form, that stuff didn't even happen until like probably the 80s or whatever. So it's just still really young. Yeah. We don't even have our founders of all these things are just starting to die in a lot of ways. And it seems weird to me that there's not hundreds of generations of stand-ups that we know. Again, I guess Mark Twain in a sense like sticks out as some sort of equivalency back then with his pamphlets, his hilarious pamphlets and stuff. And yeah.
My favorite thing I think that about stand-up history is that the very first comedy club ever was opened in New York on 44th Street, and it was the improvisation. The very first stand-up club is called the Improvisation, and the Improv still exists.
Why is that? Why is when you think of stand-up, you think of a brick wall that says improv behind it?
Yeah, isn't that? I think that's so interesting. And there is a new documentary about the history of the improv, and so I'll probably watch that and come back with a better answer for you. But I do think it's what a weird thing that was just like this relic of not really understanding what the art form was going to be and calling it something that they had a term for. I hope.
Yeah. I think most stand-ups and improvisers know that there is that weird crossover of that one wall. Like, why does that wall say the wrong thing on it? Why does it say stand-up behind it? Why aren't there improvisers in front of it?
Who do you think is the greatest improviser of all time? Who's the GOAT?
Yeah, that is a great question. Again, people would say probably like Amy Poehler and Matt Walsh, Matt Besser, all the founders of UCB, Ian Roberts. But I don't know, like a Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, Will Ferrell. I don't know. It's hard again to say because the truth is, for me, the greatest improviser was like Joe Carney, the guy I play with the One Night Stanleys. Because again, improv it's I don't know how I don't know. It's such an intimate thing that I know a good improviser when I play with them. Bob Odenkirk was super fun to play with, but again, Joe Carney is my favorite. He's a local guy, but like
he's great.
It's just who you connect with. The great ones can have funny improvised lines, but I don't know. For me, an improviser is someone that I've interacted with. You know it when you see it. I don't know. Yeah. Who's the greatest lover of all time? I can only really pull from your basket. Or it's hard to be like that fucking person's the greatest thing that has an intimate relationship. I don't know. Yeah. But when I was a kid, maybe Dana Carvey. maybe
Oh,
was someone, again, not an improviser, but sketch comedian or whatever, was
I
someone
watched
that
his
really,
stand-up special a gazillion times as a
yeah,
kid,
that
a
was like
million
that
times.
that got me. That one like
Mhm.
really defined me a bit. That Office Space, those things that hit me in a way that started defining my comedy for sure.
Yeah.
What about you? Who the goats?
I go back
There's
and
quite a
forth on this one.
few.
Yeah, there's a lot, and people all have their
It's
own,
very
and so
subjective.
yeah, I really truly think it's Carlin because Carlin's one of those ones that people from every side of any political alignment have taken him on as to be their hero, and I think that
Yeah.
what a cool thing to have happened, just
Mhm,
to be
mhm,
like, no matter what, you'll like me, even if I
mhm.
probably wouldn't have liked you or
What a
whatever.
gruff dude too, just so gruff. I
And he
love it.
started out being just like a goofy goof guy in the
Mhm.
60s, like really clean cut, and then just was like, no, enough of this, and then just went
Yeah,
his like true way. And I think that's a really cool thing that can happen in your creative career. But
yeah.
Richard Pryor is also really incredible and really taught everybody how pulling from your own personal um is the best way to make comedy and not just
Mhm,
talking about like groups of people and like
mhm,
really
mhm,
honed what stand up is today because of him and his
mhm.
experience. And he had a wild life, so he has lots to talk about. But now, Trait, who do you think is the greatest stand-up of all time? And I'll tell you who I think the greatest improviser of all time is.
Ooh, good, good, good. Again, for some reason, I always like in college, like Bill Hicks really
Yeah.
resonated with me. He was just telling it like it was. I felt, and it felt like ahead of their time for sure. Yeah, and then that Dana Carvey one defined me. Megator, Mega T, Megato, whatever. That
Yeah.
thing got me. If it's that, is that the one that you're talking about too?
Yeah, for sure. 1000%.
I haven't seen it in a while. I'm like afraid to watch it because it was so good to me then, and I'm afraid it might not be as funny now.
It doesn't stand up. Especially
No,
once you see all the
it
stuff that
doesn't
he's
stand up.
referencing. Like
Uh-huh.
when you know that the chop and broccoli thing was from SNL and he just decided to bring it to his stand-up thing, and then you're like, no, it's so funny.
But so interesting, yeah, that like now watching it as more of an experienced comedian, I might not find it so good, but like whatever maturity level I was at the time really matched with Dana Carvey.
That's the same thing with that first Dane Cook album. When
Oh,
he's
sure.
like, I
That
mean,
it's
my
good, but
God,
it's not, but it's good. It was
I
funny.
hadn't heard anything like that in my life before that, and I just thought it was
Yeah.
the greatest thing. We listened to it on every road trip,
Is
like
that like Tang in Your Eye or whatever?
yeah,
Boom.
Kool-Aid Man
Doing
and
whatever
the
cool.
Burger
Yeah.
King one and Monopoly. Yeah, the whole it was
For me, he was saying things differently. Like he was louder,
he
which
sure
made me
was.
listen.
Yeah, for sure. And then
Green sticks out as someone also that, yeah, it's so hard to say they're good because they fucking are, period. These people are
mhm,
good because they
mhm.
moved me in a way, but now not necessarily respecting the thing they were doing in the same way. But it's also a reminder that they were doing what they were doing in a rebellion to what was the current stat of things, how the world was at that time. And I don't know. It's so hard to understand what those comments were because you don't understand the situation they were coming out of. And so it might seem obnoxious now, but it's no, we needed that obnoxious humor because it was so boring before that or whatever.
We gotta get a sketch person in here because I'm sure they've got such a view on Tom
That's
Green.
the third one,
Mhm. Yeah.
the third of their triumvirate. We need to find them.
Mhm. Rusty loves there's a comedian here. If you're not from Albuquerque, there's a comedian here named Rusty Rutherford. Rusty is very inspired by Tom Green, loves Tom
Yeah.
Green.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And I remember Rusty's early stuff felt Tom
yep.
Greeny in the good ways and the
Yeah.
bad ways now or
Mhm.
whatever. But like in the same way, that was how Rusty, as that person, wanted to express themselves in that
Yeah.
moment. And it was like super valid. And
Very
it
cool.
was spot on. It was very good. Yeah.
My favorite
Rusty.
improviser of all time is Bonnie Hunt, and I think it's a wild card answer. But
Uh-huh.
I told you I have these Second City CDs that I bought that
Yeah.
came in a book, and she's got one in there, a scene that she just is so grounded, and it's very like Elaine May oriented, and I really
Uh-huh.
love like Nichols and May too. And it's
I
like
have a record. Yeah, it's so
oh
good.
man, so I like that when improv is a little less and a little bit more just gentle connection. I think that there's
Yeah.
just a lot of like really good humor, and a really good straight man is I think one of the best things you can be on stage. So
Yeah, I have a Nichols and May record and it's super old and it's awesome. They just have a piano player play some music and then they come in and they improvise based on the music and it's very casual, very boring, but so fucking funny because you're like, they're making this up. This is not real, but they're just two people. Yeah, they're really good.
that's
Really.
awesome.
And I think that's going back to Joe Carney or whatever is like,
Mhm.
for me, the best improvisers are the quietest ones. Yeah, the ones that are taking their time and are like barely pushing it, but they're pushing it always correctly in the right direction or whatever. And so it's like not a sexy looking skill. So it's they don't stick out as like a loud stand up that is delivering the truth or whatever. Yeah, it's a different kind of look, I think.
Yeah, for sure. We should. I want to do this thing where it's called like an album potluck, where everybody just brings a record and we like
Uh-huh.
play it in its entirety. I have a
Oh,
bunch of. I found a Saturday Night Live one that's basically like an episode that they just recorded for vinyl,
Cool.
And I've never listened to it, but it'd be one of those ones that we could play at the box even sometime while
Yeah.
people are waiting to get let in for the show or that kind of stuff. We could do it
I
early
love
on.
it.
Cool. Okay.
What else?
Yeah, I guess we answered this about how the two have really informed each other throughout their history. And I don't think they really could exist without the other one because of all the other stuff we've talked about on this podcast.
Yeah. Again, I think it is just, I'm a funny person and I want to express, I want to connect. And it's just been finding any way to do it. And like we said, you get into improv or stand up mostly because of what's around you. And you're like, oh, I'm going this way. I'm into this thing or whatever. And I don't know. It's a soul. I think what we do is a little soul and just how it's been expressing itself throughout the generations or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. It could be its own Pixar movie where the two blobs that don't get along. Great. What do you think? Okay, this is the last question that I've got, but if it branches off into something else, I'm cool with it too. But what do you think people will say about this era when they're talking about the history of our our stuff in the future?
We talked about it in the last episode, but like AI will be starting to probably influence our work. We're like at the cutting edge of that and either resisting that or leaning into it probably. I don't know. We've talked a little bit, it feels like comedy is on a rise right now, but I think it doesn't feel like it's the rise. It feels like it's always in an up and down kind of thing. So I don't know, like the 10-year chunk, this last 10, 20 years maybe. I don't know. I don't think improv has done much. There's again, all these theaters opening up, but it hasn't. That sounds stupid. Of course it's done something, but no, I don't feel like it's been in like a rich renaissance. There's not improv on every street corner or anything
yet. Yeah.
So I think it's maybe it's under the surface right now. I don't think it's widely recognized by the general public.
Yeah. I did all this.
Maybe it'll crack.
Yeah, that's cool. I did this research during COVID about what did people do during the 1918 like Spanish flu outbreak. And there was like one town that told all their kids that Christmas was going to be in March that year. And so they didn't celebrate Christmas when the number was high and they just pretended like it happened in March and celebrated it then. And I thought that was a pretty smart thing we should have probably copied. But there's been no real record that I've found of the cabaret shows closed or those kind of things. And I'd like to look into that because I think this era is going to be defined as what did our respective things do when we couldn't have a live audience?
Yeah.
And then what did they do once things opened up, and how did that impact whether or not there was?
I guess clearly, like we went online, and all that. That is what is happening to stand up right now for sure, and improv again. Like it is all going to that place, and we did our shows online because we still needed to do them. Both art forms were like, fuck it, we're not going away. We're going to keep going. Because you guys did stand up shows on Zoom.
Yeah, I did a few stand up shows on Zoom, and then
how did those go?
They were good. I did mostly I like Zoom as a tool in general. And so I was just figuring out funny ways to use Zoom. And then I would use that in my time with the audience that was there. So I did a lot of slideshows that were goofy and just respond in the chat, crowd work kind of stuff. And then
that was all we had, right? You didn't have a live audience?
We could, but
you
had a distracting.
Chat audience. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did a talk show during it that I used it to interview comedians, and that was fun and kept everybody in touch with each other. And then we played weird games with that too. I wrote Jimmy Fallon-y kind of desk games, and we played those with the audience and that stuff.
Was there any thought that it wasn't coming back? That you might lose your art?
I don't think that, because it was pretty much the other Texas and Florida just kept going. So I was, this isn't right, but at the same time, okay. Then when we were allowed to be outside, I did outside shows. When we were allowed to have 10 people in a room, we did shows with 10 people in the room. We did. So as it opened, as it shrunk and grew, like with history, we just showed up wherever we were told to go.
Yeah, same thing. We are just going to do it as much as we can, wherever we can. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny to have a separated audience with masks. And I think we did some shows with masks on.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard to do improv with a mask because there's a lot you're missing here. There's a lot of facial expressions and reads that you're not going to get. To be a little more heavy-handed with your stuff.
At first Funny Fiesta, we all had to have a water bottle in our hand or food in our hand in order to not be in masks when we were on stage.
I forgot about that. I did a show like that too, where we had to hold a bottle of water.
We had a sketch show in that festival.
That's so cute that we obeyed the rules.
We were like, okay.
The CDC rules. Yeah, it was really funny. No one was gonna fucking shut us down. But
no. They probably should have if we hadn't followed the rules, but we did. And so
he's got a bagel in his hand, he's fine.
Yeah, we made everybody wear ring pops.
Oh, that's smart.
So it was just and I think the audience even was like, when are they going to explain what these ring pops are about? But we just were like, nope, I'm a cop with a ring pop. Yeah. So, people do crazy stuff. All right, let's go to the third
section.
Let's do it. Did it again. I cut you off again, Alex. You should have the controls.
No, I don't want them. No change our Patreon, right?
Nope, still holding strong, but that can all change with your help. If you're out there listening and you really want to rep Team Stand Up or Team Improv, you can go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/the Goofball Coalition Podcast.
Do you want to share the names of those people or no? This is anonymous.
Yeah.
Is it fun to celebrate those people?
Yeah, I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So right now, we have Kristen Berg,
Nice.
Chelsea Sword,
Nice.
Doug Montoya, all repping Team Improv. So
Wonderful. Great.
Great
And
choices.
Who's you got on your stand?
I've got my own wife, Kelly,
Nice.
and Davey, who I love,
Well,
Davey regularly.
Well, my wife's not on mine, so
So-
better wife.
The last time I talked with her, she was like, I was in the other room while you guys were recording and I was listening to you. So she's
That's
a
funny.
listener, a long time
Well,
listener.
let's figure out some mini games, some better wife mini game.
Yeah.
We can do each week.
Well, we can
See
do that,
who's
yeah,
got the better wife. We'll figure it out.
For $1 a month, you can be the better wife.
That's it. Yeah,
that's-
she's winning. Damn it, Lauren. All right, I'll figure it out.
It's no problem. But what else? We got it's the same plugs we do every week, right?
Yeah. Shows are out now. They'll be moving to 9 next week,
Yeah,
according
that's
to when
awesome.
this comes out. Yeah, so 9
And
o'clock.
yeah, when this comes out, we will be all moved into the Box Annex and enjoying ourselves immensely.
Yes.
And loving our new partnership. So
And getting ready for our next second Saturday because that was super fun. We
I-
had a big second Saturday event that we're going to do, and the first one was killer. It was
really, it was a magic night. And so I'm super excited to bring that back. And I don't know, as it gets warmer and we get more buskers and like that kind of stuff out on the street,
Yeah.
it's going to be like really cool.
Yeah, we're trying to make an event for you, Albuquerque. Come out and check it out.
Yeah, for sure. And then in the meantime, listen to this podcast. You can follow and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram where you can get some extra clips.
Go back and
And-
correct our history. It means you were
Oh,
listening.
please. Yeah, that's really
That's
important.
what we did right.
Um,
Audience questions too. We'd love some questions
Yeah.
from you all because that's going back to it all. Like we love to interact and connect, and it's like we're connecting with each other, but it would be so great to connect with our audience too. So any feedback you got for us, questions, comments, anything, we'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks for listening. Love you
We
guys.
need like a real like sign off, but we'll
Yeah,
figure
we'll
that out
figure it
later.